What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a program review of one of our subscribers. So a couple days ago I put on the Instagram story that if you write your own program, you can submit it and I will go over it. So for you guys that write your own program and would like some constructive criticism on it, there's a link down in the description. You can submit it and I'll get to as many as I can. But my goal with this is not to say my way or the highway, or say that there's only one way of doing things, or say that your program is not good. Our goal is always to build guys up. There's many different ways of doing things, and our goal is to just provide that constructive criticism. So ultimately we can get the most out of the effort we put into training and know that we are on the right path. So we're going to be going over the program today. I'm going to talk about what I like about it, what could be better, and then we'll provide some alternative, criticisms at the end of the video. But this individual is training for SFAS. He's about 6 to 7 months out. He comes from an endurance background, so he's really focused on strength, he says, for the next 3 months before SFAS peak program. However, this is my first kind of critique, is you will still be building strength through the last 12 weeks of an SFAS program. That doesn't mean we just neglect strength, especially coming from an endurance background. Making sure that we perform under a load is huge. One of the biggest reasons why guys fail team week is they become a safety violation. So when they start dropping things with low carries, when they start dropping things with high carries, they can get dropped for that because you're carrying a lot of weight, and if it drops, you can seriously injure someone. So he's still, I would tell this individual that even if you're going to selection in 6 months, you got about 5 months of really building some solid strength, especially, like I said, coming from that endurance background. Do you have any current or past injuries affecting your training? Normally shy away from distal hamstring work. That is where the hamstring attaches to the back of the knee, so a little bit lower on the hamstring, because it gives them slight hamstring tendonitis. And then the format of this program is 3 lifting days, 3 running days, and 1 day off. Those lifting days are a full body split, and we'll dive into that in just a second. His big questions are, is it too much lifting volume? Isn't enough running volume for maintenance? He's done 60 miles per week marathon programs in the past. 60 miles per week is a lot. Is there a strength progression scheme I should use on the big lifts? And then should I integrate some power training? And is there anything missing or any weak spots? So as we go through the video, I want you to keep these questions in the back of your mind, analyze the program along with me, and then drop down in the comments any critiques or things that we can improve to this program. Again, we're not hating on guys, we're lifting guys up, but there's things that we can objectively look at and provide some feedback on. All right, so day 1, this is going to be his lift. Before we dive into that, I'll go down to the warm-ups. So he has a weightlifting warm-up and a run day warm-up. And overall, I think these are fantastic. Quick, full body warm-up. I do like to include a little bit of prehab work. He has some prehab work here, but maybe TKEs, Copenhagen drills, which he has later on in the program. But we do like to include those things up front. But overall, pretty solid warm up. The thing I might change is maybe moving the band pull parts earlier on in the, I know he's got band face pull parts, but above the dead hang at least, especially coming out of like a, upper biased session where your chest might be a little bit sore. Going cold straight into a dead hang might create some issues, or guys might experience pain. If you feel good with dead hangs though, completely fine to have it up front. But for those that are, maybe piggybacking off of this, I would have a little bit of warm up prior to going into the dead hang. I love that he has some neck flexion in there, and then tib and calf stimulus that is really going to limit his potential for shin splints. Obviously he comes from a endurance background, so likely doesn't experience that, but I do love to see some tib work inside of the warm-ups. Running warm-up, glute bridge walkout with short range of motion. So this is a little bit of hamstring stimulus for the guys that don't know or haven't seen a walkout before. Good, similar concept to what the dead hang is. I know he's doing a short range of motion, but when I'm getting some hamstring stimulus, especially if he's coming from an environment where he has a history of hamstring tendonitis, I wouldn't necessarily go into a hamstring walkout right away. I might get a little bit more blood flowing, a little bit of stimulus prior to going into the walkout, but not a bad thing to include in here. Leg swings, 90-90 hip internal, external rotation. lying leg raises, tib raises again, so fantastic deficit calf raise, and then A skip or high knees. This is my favorite part of this entire thing. A skips, B skips, high knees. These are priming our not only the impact resistance, but our neurological, like recruitment of the muscle fibers, our proprioception, getting our body primed to run and do so with really good form. So love that he's including some skips in here. Overall, the warm-ups are pretty solid. Just those two kind of notes on getting some blood flowing before those two movements. Moving into the first full body session. So he starts with a hinge. I love that he has the essential movement patterns listed out on the side and what those kind of look like. Essential movement patterns are what we like to train with. So you guys have probably heard me say this a million times, but we don't need to get married to a specific lift, but we want to include the patterns within that lift. So for example, the squat movement pattern can include a barbell back squat. It can include a front squat. It can include a hack squat, belt squat, etc. So there's variations under each of these movement patterns. So great job listening this out, thinking through that and making sure that you're including the movement patterns on a weekly basis. The first thing that stands out to me with this training session in regards to kind of like a critique would be just the number of exercises. It is a lot of exercises. Looks like he does Delta 1, Delta 2, Echo 1, Echo 2, Fox 1, Fox 2, so probably 3 supersets here, which is solid. So but what I would say is you don't have to hit all of the essential movement patterns in each individual session. You can probably drop this down a little bit. You can drop this upright row, not necessary with what we're looking to do right now. And the upright row is not technically a vertical pulling movement. It's more of a shoulder abduction movement. But a vertical pull is when we pull down, engaging our lats. So something like a pull up, chin up, lat pull down, etc. So let's see what he has in here. This is the only one I would probably drop off. And then you have your 3 supersets and then a work capacity session. Love this work capacity session. He's got front rack carries, suitcase carries on each arm, 30 seconds. So ideally going pretty heavy with the shorter time / distance. Plank, again, 30 seconds on the plank, and then the Zercher march for 45 seconds, which is similar to a front rack carry. So you're going to get a lot of the same stimulus in regards to your spinal erectors. Not a big deal, but you'll go from the Zercher march straight into the front rack carry, which is totally fine. So good carries. Love that he included it. I'm going to touch on this in just a second because he looks like he's running the same work capacity session every workout. All right. Horizontal push is the deficit deficit push up. And then he has the high incline dumbbell row, completely fine there. Now this is one thing that I would probably, this one right here. I would probably drop from this individual session just because you already hit the RDL up front. So this is, I know it's distal hamstring, so it's going to hit a little lower part of your hamstring, but it's still going to be overall hamstring stimulus, especially if you're getting a really good stretch in that RDL and going through full range of motion. So this would be kind of an example of a redundant exercise. We can include the lying leg curl in the program later in the week, but we don't necessarily need to hit it twice in the same session, especially before a speed day. So this is kind of a consideration. It's fine to have the RDL prior to a speed day, but we don't want to, do 3 leg or 6 working sets of hamstring work, kind of fry our hamstrings before a speed session the next day, especially if we know that we are someone that is, experiencing some hamstring tendonitis. It just increases the risk of injury with that. So I would just drop the lying leg curl, and then maybe drop the upright row, or replace that with a true vertical pull. So that maybe maybe pull-ups, chin-ups, things like that. Otherwise, solid initial session going into the week. All right, next one does his speed day. It's got 1 mile times 3, so 3 miles of running, and then 1.5 miles, so 4.5 miles of overall speed session. Completely fine with that, especially with his running background. It looks like he's taking a 3-minute rest with each of those runs. That's fine as well. For the 1 mile repeats, especially if you are someone who, this guy, I talked to him as well. He runs close to a 35-minute 5 mile, and then he's a sub 13 on his 2 mile. So his run times are looking solid. Needs to focus on the strength a little bit, but he obviously comes from a running background, and 3-minute rest will probably be fine for him. If you're starting out with 1 mile repeats, doing 1, 2, 3 1 mile repeats, sometimes having a little bit more rest. I like to use a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio, meaning you rest for an equal amount of time it takes to run each interval. That would be solid. One consideration on this day, I love the speed work, big fan of it, is if you are struggling with your push-ups specifically, we could probably add a push-up, kind of circuit inside of here. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, just getting some, kind of the grease in the groove, so to say, not necessarily taking it to failure or going super crazy, but we can have a little bit of calisthenics on this day. Just an option. You don't need to. It just depends on where your numbers are at, but, might be an opportunity there. So speed day is looking good. Day 3 going into another lift. Again, he's got, looks like 3 supersets. Now, first one is the barbell back squat. And to answer his question about the progression, barbell back squat 3x5. I know he's using RPE up here. I don't know if he's using RPE or percentage base down here. I would do one or the other. And then, let's say one of my favorite methods to use is kind of an altered version of the 5-3-1 method. But let's say you wanted to do the 5-3-1 method here. We could do barbell back squat 3x5 at 65%, 75%, 85%. And then week 2, we could do 3x3 at 70%, 80%, 90%. And then week 3, we could do 5 reps at 75%, 3 reps at 85%, and then 1 rep at 95% before going into a deload that 4th week. And this is just a simple strength progression. It's based on training maxes, and then each phase you would be looking to increase your training max by about 10 to 15 pounds, depending on how these felt RPE wise. Or you can just do it based on RPE, and then take a deload every 4th or 6 weeks, and then progress from that, making sure that you are getting a progressive overload, maintaining quality form, but gradually putting weight on the bar. So to answer your question, I wouldn't just stick with 3x5, going 10 RPE every week. I would vary the RPE, changing the intensity on the week, or use it a percentage base. There's not a right answer. It doesn't matter if you use RPE or percentage base, but you want to stick with one and then gradually and see your numbers climb over time with structured deload weeks in there. So a lot of our strength stimulus is going to come from neurological adaptations of actually recruiting the muscle fibers. So when we train in the higher percentages, that 1 to 5 rep range, we are getting that force or that mechanical tension on our body and teaching our body to recruit those muscle fibers efficiently to improve that force output. So one thing I do like about this session is he includes the big lifts right up front before going into the accessory work. So fantastic job there. And the reason we want to do that is because if we, you can have it later on, like mid workout, if you don't do super exhausting work up front. But typically, if strength is the goal of the program currently, having those big movements up front when you're neurologically fresh is going to be a good idea to maximize our strength potential. Then he has his antagonistic supersets. Love that he has the antagonistic supersets. So he's doing a push paired with a pull. Barbell row, completely fine with that. Might be a little bit hard to set up depending on what gym you work at, but barbell bench press to a barbell row, completely fine with that. Taking a little bit longer rest, 2-3 minutes. Vertical push, vertical pull. So he's got dumbbell overhead press paired with some pull-ups. Love it. And then some single leg RDL and then some knee extension. Completely fine there. Dumbbell shrugs and then rear delt flies. Also fine there. So overall, pretty solid session. One kind of gripe with it is he hits the same work capacity session. So he's doing carries every day with this individual work capacity session, but I would mix up the stimulus with these. One thing that we like to do, our head strength coach, Matt Powell, he's the strength coach down at 375. And when he came on board with us, he kind of coined something that we have adopted, and that is leg fuck downs. And that is leg specific work capacity work. Targeting your ability to work through fatigue. So lots of step ups, lots of sled work, and really driving up that fatigue resistance. So I might include one of those here. You can do, like a sled push, sled pull, sled horizontal pull, or lateral pull rather, and then get a little bit of different stimulus with these work capacity sessions in there. I like that he includes the work capacity sessions throughout the week, but can switch it up a little bit. And you can also include, like, let's say you want to have this day primarily focus on strength building. Maybe you have the back squat, things like that. And then because your endurance is so high, this is just food for thought, by the way, because you have a really good endurance background, you might be able to do kind of a brick run or a LFD, as we call them, prior to this run, a little 10-minute kind of smoker, and then go for your 60, 90-minute zone 2 run. Just food for thought, making sure you're hydrating, taking your electrolytes, things like that, but could be some good stimulus to work through that fatigue. Next day is he has a hybrid hinge. Look at this. Love that he puts a hybrid hinge. So for those that don't know, the trap bar deadlift, fantastic movement. It can replace your straight bar deadlift all day long. You do not have to straight bar deadlift, especially if you have any pains or you don't have form or you get lower back pain from it. But the trap bar deadlift is technically a hybrid hinge. So it's kind of like a mix between the squat movement pattern and the hinge movement pattern, as opposed to a straight bar deadlift or an RDL, which is going to be a true hinging movement. So same thing with trap bar deadlift, having some sort of progression throughout this phase with a deload week. I like to take deload weeks on the big movements every 4th week and then kind of reset those training maxes to make sure that we're gaining strength over a period of time. But if you're feeling good and you're doing it, based off of RPE, and you're continuing to see progress, you feel strong under the bar, your grip strength feels strong, you can push out that deload week strength-wise to 6, maybe 8 weeks. And that wouldn't necessarily go beyond that, because there is, fatigue does start to accumulate. Even if we feel good, our CNS or our central nervous system does get fatigued from training over a period of time. So we want to have a time to let it recover, let it refresh, and then we can continue with the strength building fresh and continue driving up those numbers. Vertical push, vertical pull, push press, supinated grip, lat pull down, fantastic. Horizontal push, horizontal pull, love this right here, Pendlay row. Incline dumbbell bench press with a Pendlay row, lunge, step up, and calves. Cool. And then triceps, biceps before going into his work capacity session. Same thing with the work capacity session. Might mix it up just a little bit. And then he has a Saturday session. Love this as well. He's got some anti-rotation Palloff press, which is, for those that haven't or don't include the Palloff press very much, I'm a big fan of it. You're not going to feel like crazy burn or stimulus, but it is fantastic for bracing core and kind of a supportive movement. Then he has a reverse crunch. Big fan of the reverse crunch as well, especially for guys that have lower back pain. Reverse crunch is a good alternative to having that spinal flexion in there. Then he has lateral flexion. So Copenhagen side plank. Copenhagen side plank is, you're not going to have flexion in there. You're keeping your body in line, but it's a fantastic movement to include to hit your adductors and really drive up your hip stability. So love that as well. Half kneeling rotational chop, good to go. And then he has zone 2 run, 30 minutes, followed by 8 by 30-second hill sprints with a 1-minute rest. Fantastic. Love that. And then he has a mobility session. So this session overall, big fan of it. Right now, with his primary goal being strength oriented, he alternates a run and ruck weekly. He's 6 months out, so completely fine with that. I would primarily be doing these rucks walking only. You're just driving up your conditioning. You're getting time under load. You're getting the strength built to carry the load. And then once you're within that 4 to 3 months out, really drive up the intensity with those rucks and then make them a weekly occurrence. Depending on your times, you can even make them a twice per week thing that you do, one short and fast, one long and a little bit slower. And then mobility work, he's got the crocodile breathing, 2x5 deep breaths. Love some breathing work in there. Cat cow, fantastic. Thread the needle, 90-90 hip switch, and then half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Love this. If it feels good, you can absolutely do it. Some guys feel a little bit better with a couch stretch, which is very similar stimulus, just a little bit deeper stretch, but just food for thought. Pigeon pose with reach, deep squat hold with shift. Fantastic. Love this. I think a lot of us, myself included, don't spend enough time in the actual squat position holding it. And the squat position is one of the best things we can do for hip mobility. So 90-90 hip switches with some deep squat hold, fantastic. And one of the biggest things I always see when guys talk about mobility work is only doing stretching, but he's getting some good stimulus in here along with the stretching itself. So he's got wall angels or shoulder cars, standing pec stretch, and then standing calf stretch. The only thing I might add in here is a little bit of glute medius work. So maybe some airplanes, or maybe you have the Copenhagen side planks up down here somewhere. Oh, up here, Copenhagen side planks. Maybe you can include something like a clamshell side plank, which will get some glute medius stimulus. And hitting your glute medius is fantastic for reducing the potential for IT band syndrome. If you guys have IT band syndrome and you're just relentlessly, rolling your IT bands, I would think about hitting up a little bit higher and hitting that glute medius as well. But overall, man, really like the program. Solid thought process behind a lot of the stuff. A couple small tweaks to think about. Big takeaways is, changing up the work capacity sessions, maybe including a little bit of, calisthenics work on your speed session, having a progression inside of your strength work. And then one thing I almost forgot to touch on is the power development. You absolutely want some power development inside of here, and then I would just squeeze that up on the front side of your lifting. So you can even pair your power development with a carry starting out. So if you do box jumps or you do broad jumps, things like that, you can pair it with a superset with a carry up front, or you can do a compound set with back squats and a vertical jump. So absolutely want to get some power development inside of here. You are including some hill sprints, which is fantastic. But as far as jumps, things like that, that is going to be really good to make sure you're hitting. The running volume overall is not bad. You're doing like a 90-minute run on Thursday, and then a 30-minute session with some anaerobic conditioning. So yeah, not bad. It's probably a little bit low, but you have 6 months. So I would either increase it a little bit, maybe hit some conditioning with these sessions, or add like a easy zone 2 run on a Monday afternoon, something like that. Or at the very least, just including some things like pogo hops to make sure that you're maintaining that impact resistance. But overall, food for thought. Hope you got something from it. I think you're running a pretty good program overall. Like I said, a couple minor tweaks and you'll be on your way, man. But overall, solid work. Appreciate you guys watching. If you want to submit your program to potentially review on the channel, there's a link down in the description. And if you want us to build a custom program based on where you're at and the goals that you have, there's a link for that down in the description as well. Otherwise, hope you guys are well. Talk to you soon.